What's up everyone, welcome to my channel. I'm Ryan Becker and in this video, we're talking unity. In a time of such fierce division, can we really find it? On this channel, I discuss issues in religion, culture, and society, and I try to find ways to navigate them. And I also try to encourage people and create content that helps us have better conversations with those around us. So if you find this video helpful and beneficial to you in any way, it would mean the world to me if you would click that thumbs up button and like this video. Here's this video's comment question. What do you think is the best way for any groups that you belong to find unity? So, like if you're a Christian, how do you think Christians can find unity? If you are passionate about politics, how do you believe that we can achieve political unity? I'd love to hear your thoughts, your suggestions, and your opinions. With the growing division we are witnessing in the United States and within Christianity as well, I have also seen another rise. People taking the high road by calling for unity. As there are more arguments, both online and in person, more and more people are also taking to their personal platforms and encouraging people to be united. Often I hear things like, now more than ever, we need to be united. We should be doing all we can to be united. Why can't we just stop fighting? There are more important things to focus on. Or, and this one is my personal favorite, this is all just a distraction from things that really matter. So stop fighting over petty things and let's just be united on what matters. The intention behind these calls is typically good. It comes from a place that values peace, and it comes from personalities that are more inclined to be peacemakers, seeking ways to build bridges and mend relationships. The problem is that these calls for unity only come when people have begun advocating for change. The calls for unity only come where there is resistance. While this seems obvious at face value, as no one calls for unity when there's peace, the result of these calls is that instead of calling for unity, they are only calling to keep the status quo. Sure, we can call for unity when a fight breaks out, but we should be doing the hard work of asking ourselves this question when things are quiet. Are we actually united right now? The answer to that question, in my experience, is usually no. Usually, any perceived unity is built on one of two things: the unexpressed discontent of one or more parties, and number two, authority figures that use their powers to silence those who would be discontent via intimidation. But there is another significant problem with calling for unity and believing that by doing so, we are taking the high road. You see, justice is a necessary part of unity, and as long as core issues remain unresolved, any unity has clearly defined limits and is only a temporary facade at best. Allow me to explain. Let's say person A is a Christian that is racist and engages in racist activity, seeing no problem with their behavior. Now let's say person B is a Black Christian. You might think that these people can be united in Christ, and you may tell them that they need to learn to get along because they'll be together in heaven. But there are a couple problems with this. Number one, if person A believes in Christ, but also believes that other races are inferior, they have a completely different foundational understanding of Christ than person B. There is no common belief to unite these two because one person's Christ permits racism and the other person's Christ unequivocally forbids it. If your Christ is different than mine, we cannot be unified in Christ. So what about the whole being in heaven together thing? While it's true that both people may end up in heaven, since all of us have personal issues that we haven't overcome and may still be with us when Jesus returns, the reality of heaven is that person A's racism will not follow them there. This means that the one element causing their division will no longer be present, allowing room for a reconciled and positive relationship between person A and person B. When we call for unity, we demonstrate that we are more interested in peace than we are justice. We demonstrate that we believe the conflict is the problem, not what caused the conflict. And we view both sides involved in the conflict as guilty. But unity cannot exist when one person believes that they are better than another. Unity cannot exist when one person is oppressing another. Unity cannot exist where there is no common ground. And any unity that does exist is nothing more than the illusion of unity hiding a constant state of negative tension. True unity can only exist when what is wrong is made right. In other words, true unity can only be created through a process which must include justice. Asking someone to be united with another who either oppresses or actively causes harm is like asking a wife or husband to stay with their abusive spouse. You didn't deal with the problem. You just kept the status quo and ensured that those who are causing harm are permitted to keep doing so. And look, I get it. Conflict is painful, and it's so frustrating to see people fighting all the time. It's exhausting to witness conflict go on and on, especially when it's between people that we care about. But we have to remember that conflict itself isn't the problem in these moments, but conflict is an indicator that can show us what the real problem is, whatever caused the fight in the first place. Until we deal with that root cause, all our calls for unity do is favor the offenders. If you only called for unity when people started demanding equality, you favored the side that created inequality. If you only called for unity when people started standing up for themselves, you favored the bullies. But here's the thing. Most calls for unity are genuine and come from a genuinely good place, like I said earlier, meaning that this result of favoring the offender is usually in direct opposition to our intent. Many are calling for peace and wishing for unity with the best intentions possible, and there's nothing wrong with desiring those things. But this gets complicated if you seek to get there without including justice. Here's why this is so important. Enabling. The reason cheaters and bad people always seem to get to the top is because no one holds them accountable. When they get away with their behavior, it's reinforced, and they learn that they can continue to do what they've always done, and it will continue to benefit them. By not holding people accountable for their actions, we teach them, and we teach others watching, that that behavior is acceptable. Or at the very worst, the behavior will result in a small slap on the wrist. This is why people get mad when huge corporations are only fined a few $1,000s for breaking the law. These companies learn that those fines are just the price of doing business, and they continue on as if nothing happened. It is the same with conflict. When conflict is the result of a power imbalance, offensive behavior, or actions based out of conspiracy theories and false accusations, then calling for unity without justice and actions which correct the offenses done, we are enabling the offender to offend again. One such example of this, as I mentioned earlier, is marriage and divorce. I have heard and seen too many stories of people cheating on their spouses and abusing their spouses. And when the victim of that adultery or abuse decides to stand up for themselves and get a divorce, many will blame the victim for not trying enough to resolve the problem. This happens in churches way too often, and is even more likely if the offending spouse is a high-profile leader in the church. Everyone wants the marriage to work, believing divorce to be wrong. But within conflicts like that, divorce isn't the issue. It is the result of a betrayal and a harm done by one party to another. And in these cases, divorce is holding the spouse accountable and showing them that there are consequences for their actions. So when the church or anyone else jumps to defend the unity of the marriage, they only end up enabling the offending spouse to wreak even more havoc. But what about when victims lie? From a lot of the data, those claiming harm that was done to them tend to be genuine. For example, much of the research into false accusations of sexual assault found that false accusations are somewhere between 2 and 10% on average of all reported sexual assault cases. When you combine this with the fact that around 63% of sexual assaults go completely unreported, it's clear that the vast majority of the time, these accusations are true. So what do we do about it? How do we actually navigate these conflicts and advocate for justice in our pursuit of unity? The answer is actually pretty straightforward. Start by listening. If we can slow down and learn to be more patient in our discomfort, we can take time to listen and understand the situation. It's important to listen, research, and learn as much as possible so that we can understand where and when justice is needed. We should listen when people say they have been hurt. And we should always do our research to understand that pain and investigate the claims that are being made. But there's one last thing I want to encourage you to do. While you are listening, don't only listen to parties involved in the conflict. Listen to yourself too. As you learn about the situation, check your own motivations. Are you chasing down information to prove victims wrong because you don't want to believe that the offender could do such heinous things? Or Are you genuinely pursuing truth and justice regardless of who is at fault? Are you seeking information to disprove either side's claims? And if so, are you doing it out of reasonable suspicion or doubt? Or are you doing it out of biased motives? Some recent examples of this happening within the public sphere include Dr. Christine Blasey Ford and Ravi Zacharias. And on a grander scale, a recent example of this is when people argue against calls for racial justice by citing the statistic that more white people are shot by police than black people in the United States. But then they just stop there, refusing to properly contextualize that data based on other factors like total population size. If we do not take the time to reflect and be critical of our own feelings and motivations, we will undoubtedly cloud the cause of justice, furthering disunity instead. Now, sometimes we may accidentally be right, but most of the time, we end up causing far more harm than good. So, if you truly want unity, I would urge you to call for justice and to advocate for making things right, not just getting over it and moving on. I would urge you to take the time to listen to those expressing hurt, anger, or fear. And as you do so, I invite you to listen to your own heart and make sure that you are truly fighting for justice and unity, even if it requires something that you don't like. Together, we can fight for unity by advocating for justice and listening to one another. So I really hope that what I've shared in this video has given you some additional perspective, and maybe even some ideas of what you can do to work for justice and unity in your own life and within your own sphere of influence. So if you've enjoyed this video, do me a huge favor and click that thumbs up button, like this video, and leave a comment down below. And check out the links in the description and the other videos on my channel for more content like what you've seen here. Thank you so much for watching.